Alright guys, so welcome to part 3 in this tutorial series, and like I mentioned in the previous video, we're going to create a quick little script that helps us assign our water object shader group to our water objects, of course. So first off, you can just run the script from the text editor, or you can install it as an add-on. So first I'm gonna demo the script and then I'll show you how the script works. So I'm just gonna quickly install it. So grab it right here and enable it. So after enabling it, you get this tab right here on the left hand side, and if you click on it, you can see what we get. So currently the script also recognizes if you're in the cycles render engine. So if I switch to another render engine, it says that I have to switch to cycles to enable this feature. And if I switch to cycles, it first tells me I have to select a group. So if I actually were to start another version of Blender and get my script, let's see, water shader control, and enable it, it actually tells me I have no items if I don't have any node groups in my current scene. So beware that you just have to have a node group. So currently the script only works, of course, with our water shader group, and I created this drop-down list so that you don't have to manually type in your group object name, and instead you can just pick it from the list. So I'm just going to pick it right here. And what I can do now is assign my shaders. So let me go to the node editor. You can see this. So here I have my object shader already assigned. So if I click remove shader, you can see it removes it. And if I click add, you can see it adds it. So yeah, this is really self-explanatory. I also have this checkbox to assign it to the active material only. So if I were to have, let's say, another material, let's just call this test. And yeah, let's just leave it at a diffuse shader. You can see that if I run the add shader script, it will actually, of course I have to disable active material only. It will actually add it to all materials in the material stack. Of course you can also add it to multiple objects at the same time. So let's just select, let's add it to our box too. So just press add shader. And then let's remove our shaders from all these objects at the same time. So just click remove shader and then it's removed. Of course we have to disable active material again. Alright, now it's removed. Okay, so yeah, that's the basic functionality. Of course you can also just, instead of adding and removing the shader, you can also just paste shader settings. So if I select an object here, let's see. Let's say I'm gonna change the fake absorption slider to 1 and then click copy settings. And then if I, let's see, if I add the shader here, of course the new shader will already have the copied settings. So let's, change this out to 0. And if I now press paste settings, it will, paste those settings. Okay, so that's the basic functionality. And now I'll show you how you can create the script. So first of all, I'm just gonna give you a quick preview of how the Blender API works. So if you've never worked with Python in Blender, this will give you just a quick idea. If you've never used Python, that isn't too bad either, because we're basically just gonna use some simple if statements or for loops and nothing really complicated. Okay, so first something about the Blender API. So if you switch to the Python console, this is just the regular Python console, the same thing you get when you install Python on your PC. And Blender's file structure is basically like a folder system, and actually you can preview this in Outliner if you switch the mode to data blocks. So you can see here what we have. Let me do it like this. So basically it's just like a folder structure. So we have our scenes, and in our scenes we have our objects and so on, or we can also just go directly to our objects. So it's basically just like a huge folder structure with like links between the folders. So actually we can navigate this structure you can see that you can see right here through our Python console. So if you just type bpy, so that's the Python module for Blender. So let's just type bpy.data point and then control space to autocomplete, and as you can see we basically have the same thing as right here. So if I were to, let's see, if I were to, again just type scene and then autocomplete, as you can see it goes to my current scene because that's the only scene I have for now. And then if I type objects, I can also just navigate to my objects. So it's really like a basic folder structure. Another way to get to your objects or to anything in your blend file is by going to BpyContext. So this is a context based menu. What does this mean? This means that it just depends, it gives you different options based on where you call this command. So if your script accesses this BpyContext command in the panel, you get different options, or if you access it in your viewport, let's say in a modal operator, you also get different options. So again, bpy.scene just gives me my current scene. So and then I can go, let's say objects, and here I have the same menu. So this just takes my active scene. So if I were to go into another scene, it would, of course, take the objects of that scene. So yeah, that's just a really brief explanation. And now I'll show you how the script works. Okay, so here I have it opened in the Sublime text editor. And like I showed you before, you can install it as an add-on or just run it from the text editor. And every time you create an add-on in Blender, you have to create this variable up here. And this variable is just a dictionary which includes keys for like the name, the author, which Blender version it was created, and this is all important for the add-on installation. So as you can see, this is the info you get right here. So here's the author, the version, the name, and also the category. If you create a category that doesn't exist, or if you put a category right here that doesn't exist, Blender will actually create that category in the add-on preferences categories. So for example, here I have a particle systems category because I created my particle link add-on with this category. Okay, so that's that. The first thing you have to type in order to use the Blender API is of course the import bpy command. So of course you have to import the Blender API module, and that's one of the first steps. So here I have just a basic structure of the add-on, and I'll just paste in all the commands and functions as we go. So I usually just structure my scripts like this. So here first I define my operators, then panels, and then down here I just register my classes or my operators and panels. What does register mean? It just means that you're basically giving Python the classes so that you can call them later on. All right, so as you can see, for now I have 4 operators. So those are the things you saw here, these 4 buttons. And I also have a numerator property. So numerator properties are just properties where you have like lists, like right here, or this thing, or obviously this thing. Okay, and the other thing I have is a string property, which is defined right here. And this is used to store the copied button settings, and it you can actually see this down here in your, let's see, your scene, and if you go to custom properties, here we have our two properties that we registered. So here we have the string, and here we have the our enumerator property. Let's put that there. Okay, so in Blender, when you register properties, you can only do that to ID blocks. That's what they're called. So ID blocks are basically all the things that have this custom property drop-down menu. So if I were to go to materials, you can see they have this custom property menu or drop-down list. Particle systems have it. If I, let's see, enable that guy, where is it? Down here. Okay, and yeah, the world has it, and obviously our scene data block. Okay, so that's where we can register those properties, and yeah, the way you just do that is you go type bpy.types and then your ID block and then your property name, and then you just register the property that you need. Okay. So for enumerator properties, you can actually define the items that they have in the drop-down list dynamically, and the way you do that is you just define a function, and you have to define the scene and context variables right here. That's what it needs, and basically what you just do is you can navigate in your scene. For example, what I did here is just go to my bpy.data.node_groups to access my node groups, and it just loops through them and then appends the name to a list, and yeah, that's what you basically see. So that's how you dynamically define something like that. And by the way, everything in panels, like draw functions in panels and properties, they basically get executed every time the panel gets redrawn. So yeah, that's why that adapts dynamically. So if I were to add another group in my node graph, it would obviously just show up here, because this gets called every time the panel here gets redrawn. Okay, so that's that part. Okay, so first I'm gonna paste in how I created that whole panel. So let me just copy that guy and paste it here. So to define a panel, you have to first of all type in this in the class creation, this argument right here. And by the way, this Blender ID name always has to be lowercase, and you always have to define an ID name with operators, panels, and so on. So right here I have it defined, and so on. And here you just define where the panel is. So space type is just a 3D viewport, then it should be in the tool panel, and the category should be water shader. If you want to place it in an existing category, you can just put that name right there, but if you want to create a new one, just create a different name that doesn't exist before, and it will create that. Okay, so now we got that. So here I just define how the panel should, or what the layout of the panel should be. So like I mentioned before, if the render engine is cycled, the panel will be displayed. If not, it will just display this message down here. And if you don't have a node group, or if you don't have any node groups, it will actually just also not display anything until you pick that group. I also showed that in the beginning of the video. And if you pick a node group, it will of course then display all your operators. So that's all that is. And yeah. Okay, so that's the panel. So now let's get to our operators. So first one I'll look at is our copy operator. So let me quickly grab the code for that. Okay. Let me paste that in here. Like that. If you've never coded an operator, so the way they basically work is like this. So first the invoke function gets called, then the draw function, and then the execution function, or the execute function. Usually you try to call the functions that the operator should do at the end of the invoke, because what actually happens is the following. So if I were to, let's see, add a shader, okay, it's not showing up the menu. That's weird. Okay, let's view this guy, and let's click remove and add. Oh, it's dropped down. Okay, so what basically happens is that the invoke function is executed, then this gets drawn right here, and then yeah, if you click something here, the execute function gets triggered. So obviously you in order to notice a change, you already want to trigger a function at the end of an invoke function, then trigger the draw function, and then yeah, and then if you change something in after it's drawn, it obviously again triggers a redo, which then triggers the execution the execute function. All right, so yeah, these two arguments right here, of course, register just means that you are allowed to show like warning messages, and yeah, like something like this, self.report, and then it's like either info or a warning message, and then you can put a text which should display. I'll show you that right here. So if I disable use nodes and press add shader, it actually displays this warning message. So you need to put in the register argument right here, the BL options, to display those messages, and you have to put in undo to enable the undo and redo functionality. And if you don't input undo, it will actually not give you the option to change anything right here in our yeah, options of the operator. So that's just that. Okay, so let's get to what the operator is doing. So first it yeah, checks if the active object, or yeah, if the object you have selected has an material, and it actually uses another function. So let me quickly paste in that guy. Okay, let's just put it there. So this is the function it first executes. So it just checks for an active object, then it checks if the object is of the type mesh. So it just checks if the object is not a camera or a lamp. Then it checks for an active material, and then it checks if the active material uses a node graph. And if it doesn't, it will then execute this warning message, and it will return false, this function. Okay, so then this grabs the return of this function, and yeah, if it's false, it just cancels the whole operator. But if it is true, it will then, of course, get the active material, get the node tree, then it will get the output material node, or the first output material node in the node graph, but you usually, of course, only have one. Then it will search for, then it will search the output material group for any links, and in those links it will look for it will look if the link is to a group node, and then it will check if that group node is the water shader group node, and then it will, yeah, basically just save that node. So it's basically just testing if the water shader group object group exists or it doesn't. So after that, it will then just yeah, loop through the inputs of that group and save out all the values, like here, and it will save it into an array. So an array is just a list, and then it will stringify that list and save it into our yeah, our panel settings variable, which we define down here. So that is just our property right here. If we go to our scene and then custom properties, that's our string property right here. All right, so let's go back. Yeah, so that's all it does, and then it returns finished. So that's just our simple copy operator. Okay, so next let's have a look at the paste operator. So let me quickly grab the code for that. Okay, so paste settings, and let's copy that guy. Okay, so as you can see, is a bit different. Here I have some class variables defined, and you have to, if you define these properties right here, they will actually show up automatically during the execution of the operator. So this is just the stuff which shows up right here. So if I click paste shader, it shows up here. And if you want to define the layout manually, you can actually, of course, create a draw function, and then it will use the draw function instead of the automatic layout, which it usually receives. So here's the layout of the buttons, and down here again is the invoke function, which I talked about previously. So all this does for our paste settings function is it just grabs that scene variable with the settings and saves that into a array. So it basically just grabs the data again, and then it executes this function. So let me quickly grab that guy. Let's see. Okay, so let me grab that. So it basically just takes that function and it now executes it. So let me grab that. Okay, so let me paste it up here. Okay, so what it's doing is the following. So first it checks if the active material checkbox is on or not. And again, it executes the function which checks if we have an active material, which we already discussed. And if it does not, it just returns this empty list, which is set up here, or it's actually a set. So a set is just a list which doesn't include double values, so every value is unique. So if you, I chose that because, we'll explain it down here. So what I basically do if active material is not enabled, what happens is that it loops for all your objects and puts that in a list, and then loops for all the materials per object, and then it checks if the material uses nodes, and if it doesn't, it just puts it in the skip material set. So I used a set, of course, because if two objects have the same material and that material doesn't use a node graph, it of course should only occur once in the skip material list, because else I would just, of course, be looping over a list later on, which has I would just loop over unnecessary list items. Okay, so that's that, and down here we then paste our settings, which uses this function up here. So of course, for now we just have our materials and a skip material list, and now this function gets executed. So all this function does is that it goes through your node graph and then grabs the water shader group object group node and then just pastes in those settings. That's basically it. Okay, so that's basically the paste function. And now to the last two functions. Let me grab the code for that. Just paste that in there, and let me grab the operators, add and remove shader. So the add and remove shaders actually use the same sub-functions to execute the adding and removing of the shaders. So let me paste that in here. Okay. So all these do is just execute these functions if you press the button. So let me look at those functions. So we have them up here. So what this does is, again, just checks if the active material checkbox is enabled, and then it either does it for the active material or for all materials and all objects you have selected. So yeah, this is just a repetition of the code we had before. And this is the actual function that just, again, scans the node tree, grabs the output node, and then depending if you have add or remove enabled, or yeah, if it executes the add or remove operator, it will then just execute these things. So here we'll just, again, just add a group node and paste in the settings from the from the string value that stores the saved copy settings. And yeah, if you check remove, it will of course just delete the node and move the output node to the left again. Okay, so yeah, that's basically it. So that's just a brief overview of how you can create a script like this. And that concludes part 3 of our tutorial series. Okay, so I hope you like it. If you have any questions, just ask them in the comments below, and thanks for watching.